So this is my second visit. I was here last year also, when I also spoke on the similar topic. Rather, part of today's talk is something that I had also covered last time. But at that point, our work was somewhat incomplete. So today I want to again present some more work that has been done since then. So this work has been done in collaboration with a student, Santosh, who has really worked very hard on this problem. The motivation for this work is something that is there worldwide. Finding viable and scalable quantum networks is one of the primary goals of research in quantum information processing. And most of you may be aware of what a quantum network is, but I just very briefly, a quantum network consists of nodes connected by channels in an array. Nodes are used to store quantum states like qubits and process them locally, and channels are used to carry information and create entanglement, etc. Since early days in this area, a number of proposals have been made based on different physical systems like optical systems, NMR, trapped ions, quantum dots, Josephson junctions, and possibly a few more. Here, we consider a system which is really very popular and has been considered by a large number of workers, which is a system consisting of low-loss electromagnetic cavities, each containing or coupled to a trapped atom, and then these cavities are connected by optical fibers. So here, atomic states are used as qubits, and quantum information is carried by photons which interact with them in the cavities. So the cavities have electromagnetic modes, which are sort of which interact with atomic states, and atoms make transitions and emit photons or absorb photons, and these photons then travel through these channels, which are optical fibers, and then communicate between different cavities or different set of atoms. So the outline of this talk is first I'll just give a brief account of basic elements, that is three-level atom in a cavity, which is something which is very popular and very useful, and then how if we take a two-atom cavity system connected by fiber, what is the basic quantum mechanics of it, and then one can build on that quantum mechanics to discuss quantum networks. And here our key concept that we use is this dark states, and we show that in this network there are dark states which I will define, and then we can do adiabatic processing, which I will also explain. Then I will show you how with this combination one can get very controllable n-state quantum system, that is a system which has n quantum states, and by external controls you can go from one state to another and also create any superpositions of these basic states. So that will be these two sections, and then of course it's very important to discuss. So then I will sort of try to work with with nodes that are a little more complicated than what we have been discussing, and so that one can overcome some disadvantages of this quantum network that has been described. So that will be network with 5-level atoms, and then some more physics of that. So that is the whole plan. This is our first part, that we consider an atom coupled to a cavity. So atom could be trapped inside. Now of course there are other schemes in which atoms are coupled to evanescent fields, etc. But let's just look at this simple thing. So we are interested in these three levels of an atom. There are two ground states, A0, A1, which are nearly degenerate, and then there is an excited level B. And the mode of the cavity, since cavity is small, its modes are well separated. So one mode of the cavity couples this level A1 with the excited level B. Then each cavity or each atom can be addressed by a laser in this scheme. So laser couples to the levels A0 and B with this Rabi frequency omega t, and the frequencies of the cavity mode and this external laser are kept like this. So this is called Raman condition, Raman resonance. So they don't exactly resonate between A1B and B1A0, but there is a detuning delta. So in this scheme that we are discussing here, this delta is kept a bit large, so that there is actually, by these transitions, there is little population in B. So the Hamiltonian of the system is this is the cavity Hamiltonian. C dagger C is the C dagger is the creation operator for this cavity mode, and so this is the cavity Hamiltonian, and this is the atomic Hamiltonian with these three levels A0, A1 and B. And then between atoms and these electromagnetic fields, there is this interaction Hamiltonian. So G, H bar G is the coupling between A1 and B. So this is with the cavity field. So it can create transitions from B to A1 or A1 to B with the emission or absorption of the cavity mode. And then there is this external laser which causes transitions between A0 and B. This is, whereas here we are treating these photons quantum mechanically, here these transitions are treated classically. So this laser has this frequency omega L, and it's like a time-dependent field causing these transitions between A0 and B or back. So that's the Hamiltonian. So this Hamiltonian is easy enough, and those of you who have done any basic course in quantum optics would recognize that you can write the effective Hamiltonian between states A0N. A0N means the atomic state is in this level A0, and N is the number of photons in the cavity, A1 N plus 1. So if you look at this subspace, then you can write the Hamiltonian. It's a closed subspace, okay, and then you can do it for any value of N. Here we just take N equal to 0, and this has these three eigenvalues. Okay, so that's just to show you what that Hamiltonian is. So, in what we are interested in is comes now. We take this detuning or off resonance delta large, so that this time spent in excited level B is very small, and this level can be adiabatically eliminated from the equations of motion. Okay, so when that level is eliminated, one is left with a effective two-level Hamiltonian, which of course is an approximation, but when delta is large, it is a reasonable approximation. And so that thing gives rise to this effective Hamiltonian, which I have written. And these two are diagonal terms. These are Stark shifts, and these are the terms you can see G omega. Remember, G omega is this combination. So when G omega act together, so G omega by delta is now effective transition between two lower levels, A0, A1 or A0, A1, A0. Okay, and that coupling is G omega by C, and these are two Stark shifts. Now for this scheme to work, that is this dark state scheme which we have been working on, we need to compensate these Stark shifts, that is make these terms 0, which can be done experimentally by coupling both lasers A0 and A1 to a another set of levels which are higher than B or they're chosen for this for these experimental systems in rubidium with 5s and 5p levels. This has been done. So what we do is when you couple them by another set of lasers, you introduce reverse negative Stark shifts, reverse shifts by making delta, let's say here it was positive, there you can make it negative, okay, and so you can reverse it and cancel this, so you can make these terms 0. So that the effective Hamiltonian then looks like this, where S is just this, which is a combination of the coupling of the cavity and the external laser, and this depends on. So now we look at this system, two such things, and this was considered quite a way back by Pellizzari in 1997. So here, so now I want to talk about the quantum mechanics of this system. So it has these two terms, which are just the Hamiltonians of individual cavities, as I discussed in the last slide. And then there is a H fiber, which couples the two cavities. So H fiber is very simple. There is a coupling term W, and then a photon in this cavity can tunnel to fiber. So that is this C1 F12. F dagger 12 is the creation operator for a mode that resonates with the cavity mode. Okay, so you can lose a photon here and it passes on to the fiber, and then it can, and vice versa from here also, and then you can, from fiber it goes into this. So that is the coupling. So I will not show you details of this calculation because it's straightforward, but of course algebraically it takes a while to get this. But it admits a state which has been called dark state, and it's an eigenstate of zero energy. So it has, so let me just go over the components of this. It has these first atom, let's say on the left A0, second atom A in the state A1, then both atoms in states A1 and a photon in fiber, and then first atom in A1, A0. So these two are reversed here. So this state is very useful for quantum processing, as parameters S1 and S2 depend on intensities of external lasers. So what is an adiabatic process is that we change these parameters S1 and S2 slowly in time. So whenever you change a parameter in the Hamiltonian, it's like adding a perturbation. It can cause transitions out of this state. But the adiabatic process means that the system continues in this state with these slowly varying parameters. So that we change them slowly enough so that no transitions occur. The state remains in this with changed parameters S1 and S2. So let us just first imagine a situation in which this W is large, so this component is very small. So major components are this and this. So suppose to begin with, we have S2 very large and S1 of order 1, then this eigenstate is here, okay? And now what we do is we make S2 small and S1 large, then this component decreases and this builds up, so that system goes from this state to this state. So that this, so we are going to call S0 as the excited level, A1, I mean this is A1 as the ground level. So the excitation is transferred from cavity 1 to cavity 2 just by changing the external parameters. And I mean within the definition of zero of the energy, the state has zero energy. So that is one of the key points of this scheme, that there is something. So now we consider a set of a lattice of such cavities, each containing an atom, and each atom being addressed by an individual laser. So it's just a theoretical scheme. Okay. So this term is just the Hamiltonian, as I had written, for each cavity atom system. Okay. Then this is the coupling with the fibers. So in x direction, the creation operator for photon in this fiber, in this horizontal fibers is xi, whereas in vertical fibers it is yi, and you can see that it is just a straightforward generalization of our two cavity system. Okay. So now we will write the wave function by giving the atomic state in each for each atom in the cavity, then number of photons in the cavity, okay, and then photons in the fibers. So number of fibers is equal, number is NB, B, and number of nodes is N. Mu I takes value 0 and 1. Remember, 0 is the excited state and 1 is the ground state. Okay. So again, those familiar with quantum optics will recognize that this quantity M, which is the excitation number means here either a atomic excitation plus a photon excitation. So for example, if there are no photons, all these are 0, and if mu I is 1 everywhere, then M is 0. So all atoms in state A1 and no photons is the 0 excited state, is the ground state. And now we will work in the M equal to 1 sector. That is, there is just one excitation, which means either there is one photon or there is one atomic excitation. Okay. So this M is conserved. So if we can manage to be in this sector, quantum dynamics will remain confined to this sector. So we again can look for dark states, and quite surprisingly we found that a dark state like this is found. So it you may not see it right away because of the notation. But what it is that a node I has a excitation A0 and with amplitude Si. Then on one of its neighbors, okay, there is an excitation A0. So that is one part. And then there is a photon in the, so photons are 0 here, and here there is a photon in the, one photon in the fiber. Yeah, there's one photon here. So let me just go back. So what that means is, suppose I look at this. So you have an atomic excitation here, and here it is, there's no nothing. All others have 0. And then atomic excitation here. So the state consists of atomic excitation here, atomic excitation here. The one piece is this, one piece is this, and one piece is both are in ground state, and there is a photon here. So for each bond, there is a dark state. Okay? So the interesting point is that here we have a set of NB, that is degenerate dark states, that is as many dark states as there are bonds in the network, and one can say that they are all degenerate because they all have 0 energy, and one can do adiabatic transfer among these states and have great flexibility in executing quantum operations by totally external controls. External controls here are because remember SI contains this Rabi frequency of the external laser. So this contains omega I, this contains omega I plus delta. So by changing these, one can change these coefficients of the dark states. So if you change them slowly enough so that you remain confined to these set of dark states, you can get from anywhere to anywhere. So these dark states are not orthogonal because see, there's a dark state here, then there's a dark state here, there's a dark state here, dark state here. So each of these is, each node here is a part of, let's say, 4 dark states. So the dark states, the states that are occurring in these states are these atomic states. Okay? So we are again thinking in terms of atomic states and assuming W large, so that's a small component. So what we are thinking of are states like this, Pi, where there is an atomic excitation at the node I. And the network is just connecting these. So the number of states that we have in this m equal to 1 sector is these n states. Okay? So a network of n nodes operates like an n-state quantum system, which is highly manipulable. So adiabatic processing allows us to go from arbitrary Pi to Pj, and furthermore, one can generate any linear combination of these states and transfer from one combination to another by simple protocols involving variations of intensities and phases of external lasers. So that is now to do any of these things analytically is very difficult because after all we don't have simple techniques to work with time-dependent Hamiltonians. But I have given you this background because it explains how if you change the parameters SIs, the system behaves. And we are looking at equations of motion which are confined to this sector, single excitation sector. So we have solved these numerically. So before I say that, what I want to show is that though it is a system in which we don't have, let's say, 1 qubit per node. So the number of states is not like 2 to the n. It is this, but computational tasks can be done with different interpretation. So forsaking binary representation, we assign to each lattice site a number x from 1 to n. So here numbers are not written in binary expression, but each site carries a number. So in this lattice, first site can be 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. Then algorithms, and so if we use that interpretation, remember those of you who are familiar with this, you require states like this, which is superposition of all numbers. That's a state A, which is used both in these algorithms, or which is a Fourier transform of these numbers, BQ, Fourier transform, or something which is like a reflection against the state Y. So these are typical kind of states that are used in algorithms. So we want to show you that with this we can generate all these states. If we so x's are like our pi's, okay, and so here what I am showing you is that we start with initial state in which there is an atomic excitation at first node, and then we change the Rabi frequency. So here we have a network of 8 sites. It's a chain of 8 sites. Okay, so we change the Rabi frequencies on these lasers in this particular way. So we raise 1, decrease 2. So 2 is this red one, so it comes down, goes like this. 1 goes like this, and then there are 3 is blue, 4 is this magenta, 5 is this orangish thing. If you do like this, then you can see the amplitude A1 square comes down, A2 square builds up, then that comes down, A3 square builds up, then it comes down, A4. So what we are doing is we are transferring the atomic excitation from site 1 to site 8, going first to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can stop the procedure and have the excitation. And so this is being completely done by external controls. You can stop anywhere. There is no, like other schemes where you require a precise time for certain pulses to happen. Here you don't require that. You just have to change these things. So in the second example, we start with a superposed state in which excitation is divided between P1, superposition of P1 and P3. And then we change omega 2, omega 1, omega 3 like this. Omega 4 stays there. So what you do is, for example, is you raise omega 1 and decrease omega 2, the excitation transfers from 1 to 2, and then you raise 3, so 3 drops, 4 builds up. So you go from P1, P3 to P2, P4. So that is from one superposition to another. So now there are some results on a lattice of 9 sites. So here you start with some values for these 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and you start with this state. They go down, and 1, 3 are raised. So what you find is that these excitations 1, 3, the amplitude of excitation on sites 1 and 3 has this value, and all others have some. So it's another kind of superposition that you create. Here we have also allowed phases to these Rabi frequencies. So the external states also acquire a phase. So you can see how we can get Fourier transforms of these things. See, we can manage, as I will show you next, we can manage all amplitudes equal, but phases varying in a arithmetic progression, which is indeed the state. This is another example of it. So so you start with state 1, so and then you raise omega 1 and decrease all other omega g. So here the amplitude on A1 goes down and all other A's become. So it becomes a Fourier state or a complete constant superposition. So the viability of a scheme depends on its robustness to dissipation and lack of precision in experimental controls, and it is difficult to achieve perfect time variation of control lasers as required in the protocol. So we have numerically checked the effect of introducing fluctuations in the intensity phase and timing of Rabi frequencies. Okay, so very briefly, I didn't write how we have varied things, etc., because that's just a matter of detail. What we find is that the fidelity of the desired state, that is the Fourier transform state, does suffer, but it builds up in time, and at the end of the procedure, it's rather close to 1, so it's not very bad. So now a very brief account of dissipation in this network. So effect of dissipation is the key feature again for the viability of quantum processing. The sources of dissipation here are spontaneous decay from the level B, decay of photon in the cavity mode. So photon lifetime is there. The quality factor of cavity decides how long will the electromagnetic mode be there, and decay of photons in fibers, again the quality factor of fibers. So of course these should be very good, very high to achieve any of these operations. Okay, but what one can test is what if these things are present. So very qualitatively, see, because of the large detuning, the level B is not occupied for any effective time. So this feature, the spontaneous decay of the level B, should not dangerously affect our scheme. Decay of photon, of course, is again very important thing. Here, what happens is, if you look at these dark states, dark states do not contain any photon in the cavity. They only contain one photon in the fiber. Okay, so if we are confined to a dark state vector, then it does not. I mean, of course, when it transits, there are photons that would come in, etc., etc. But for most period, the states are like that. Of course, this is an important part, and so having short and very good fibers is a very important requirement. But you can very roughly, of course, this requires a detailed treatment, but very roughly you can use at least many authors have used these kinds of non-Hermitian Hamiltonians to describe the dissipative features. So we have just used this whole procedure just to test it in a short way, what is the effect of dissipation. So here are some results. So fidelity of transfer across a chain of 4 sites. So we are just looking at it, and we have allowed these values for. So black is, so here we have plotted it against this cavity decay rate, okay, and these are the decay rates in the fiber. So for different values of fiber decay rates, calculated the fidelity. So for the largest, it comes down, of course, quite a bit, 0.7 or so, when the cavity decay rate is also at a realistic value. But for smaller values of kappa f. So now I move to the next section. The key disadvantage of the above network is that a n-node network does not provide us with n qubits. It gives us a n-state system, which in terms of qubit scales as log 2n, because number of qubits is not this. So we thought the way to handle this, at least in this scheme of things, is to complicate the node a little bit. So we looked at a 5-level atom. This also has been pretty worked upon. A lot of people have thought about this. So we have just tried this scheme with a 5-level atom. Here we have a degenerate set of these 3 levels, which we call LGR. So they are like Zeeman levels with different values of azimuthal quantum number, and we have 2 excited levels, okay. And then there are 2 modes of different polarizations, which couple to L to EL and R to ER. These are the cavity modes. And then there are 2 lasers, and they are coupling this middle level G to EL, omega L, and G to ER. This is a bit of a more complicated system. So this is what I have already said. Each atom is a device. So frequencies of lasers and modes again obey Raman condition, as I have said. For large detuning, one can adiabatically eliminate the higher levels EL and ER. This is exactly like what we did in the 3-level system. So then we are left with the lower 3 levels. So here SL, which is GL omega L by delta, will take the system from L to G or back G to L, okay, with the emission or absorption of the photon, of the cavity photon. Similarly, SR takes care of the right level, G to R, R to G. Let's show you this. So effectively, a combination of G omega L by delta acts now as something that transfers the excitation from G to L, L to G, and similarly omega R, GR, and delta G to R. And so after adiabatically eliminating these, we are left with this system of. So next step, as you can well guess, is that we look at 2 such cavities coupled by a fiber. The Hamiltonian is individual cavities, H1, H2, coupled with their atoms coupled with their cavity fields, and then there is this fiber. So there is a fiber. Now fiber has 2 modes. Again, just as cavities have 2 modes, L and R. So similarly, fiber has 2 modes. So a left polarized photon can go into the fiber and come out and get into the cavity on both sides. So that is what these terms are describing. So now this is somewhat a laborious calculation, but what we did was we took that Hamiltonian and looked at again 1 photon sector and looked for eigenstates, especially for 0 eigenstates. So 1 photon sector has like I think 22 states, and we were again happy to find that there are these dark states, states of 0 energy, which look like this. Okay, so here let me explain. I'm looking like doesn't say very much. This LL, these are atomic states of the 2 cavities. So that means, see, remember each cavity has 3 states. So here first cavity has the state L, second cavity has state L. BL is a photon state, I'll explain later. Similarly, so states involved are LL, RL, LR. Okay, BL and BR are photon states. So these are the photon states. So cavity BL means 1L. So first cavity has a 1L photon and second cavity has 0. And the other combination is first cavity has 0, 1L, 1R, like that. So these are the dark states. Okay. So remember, 2 qubits have 4 states. So that is what the system has, LL, RL, 3 states here, 3 states here. Together they have 4 states and 2 dark states. And so now each cavity has 2 possibilities, LR. And remember, the middle state G does not make its appearance in dark state, nor does a state which contains the photon in the fiber. It's a little bit different from the other system that we had. And okay. So all states are present, and now you can see we can manipulate S1L, S1R. See, now we have two controls in each cavity, so in all four controls. So you can play with these and go from here to here, here to here, here to here. So you can do all, for example, just by varying 1L and 1R, we can do single qubit operations in first cavity. Just by playing with 2L and 2R, just changing those, we can do single qubit operations in second cavity, right? And then if we can, for example, decrease S1 and S1R and S2R, we can go to we can go from this state to these states. And so we have worked out what we have to do for increasing, decreasing each of these states to go from this to, so to implement any of these quantum 2-bit quantum gates. Right now we haven't completed the numerical exercise to check whether all this happens as we think it should. But what I can show you is that, doing 2-qubit gates, etc., has been done in many, many systems. Now, what we want to see is whether we can actually make a network out of it. So we extended this analysis to 3-cavity systems. See, even in any one sector of the Hamiltonian, this analysis already becomes pretty large. For example, the one photon sector with 3 cavities has a basis set of 82 states. But one can find again dark states like this, which are at atomic level, they look very much like generalizations of the previous case like this, and may not be so obvious, but just by, you can see, you can do one cavity, 1-qubit controls by playing with these, okay, individually, 1, 2, 3, or you can vary 2 of them to go, you can change qubits here. Again, the photon states are getting a little more complicated. They cover all these 3. So this also, we have not though explored this possibility. One can look at photon states to do again quantum processing. We are not quite worried about the measurement aspects here, but it gives you this kind of possibilities. So I am not presenting any numerical work here because that is not completed yet. So let me stop here. Okay, summarize. In other schemes, transformations to desired states require the precise control on the time of the Hamiltonian evolution. Here all steps of processing are externally controlled. There is a large flexibility in doing the operations as all involved states have the same energy. Effects of dissipation are minimized as states involving spontaneous decay are not part of the processing. And in the first network, loss of cavity photons is also not that important. But of course, in quantum, when you do adiabatic processing, you do time-dependent changes. So these statements have to be understood in that context. And first part of this work has been published. This is the reference. So I thank you for the attention.